Hello and welcome to Why Design. I'm your host Chris White, and today I'm joined by Claire Trant, co-founder and CEO of Untap Health, a company using wastewater epidemiology to detect illnesses before symptoms even appear. Claire's journey is one of resilience as much as it is about innovation. With a PhD in material science from Imperial College and experience at Rolls-Royce, she took the leap into entrepreneurship, building Untap from the ground up. But it hasn't been easy, navigating early stage funding, reshaping the company's mission, and dealing with the personal and professional challenges of leading a deep tech startup. In just a few years, Untap has gone from an idea to a company securing patents, raising millions in funding, and developing hardware that's now being tested in real-world settings. With a growing team and a pipeline of customers in sectors like healthcare and agriculture, the company is now shifting from development to scaling, turning its vision into reality. In this episode, we get into the realities of scaling a hardware company, the fundraising highs and lows, and what it's like to be a female founder in a male-dominated space. Claire also opens up about the setbacks she's faced and how she's come through it stronger than ever. If you're interested in what it really takes to build a company from scratch, beyond the glossy success stories, this one's for you. Claire, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you. And so I'll do my best to introduce you, set the scene. So Claire is co-founder and CEO of Untap. You're leading a company that's transforming how we detect and prevent illnesses, catching them before symptoms even appear using wastewater epidemiology. Your background in material science from Imperial College London, where you earned a PhD researching fatigue in aerospace engine alloys, along with your experience at Rolls-Royce, gave you deep expertise in data analysis, materials, and engineering problem solving, all of which have played a key role in developing Untap's technology. Under your leadership, the company has secured millions in funding, won multiple awards, and successfully patented its proprietary technology, huge milestones for a company tackling public health at scale. And with recognition from High Growth Women Founder of the Year and Top 50 Women in Innovation, there you go, I've tripped up already, you're making a serious impact in both deep tech and disease prevention. I had the pleasure of working with you last year, should I say, on a strategic hire, and I'm excited to dive into your story. So we're going to go through your personal growth, journey so far with Untap, kind of what life is like as a female tech founder, and the role of advisors and university links in shaping the company. So let's dive in, shall we? So, how was that as an intro, Claire?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you very much. It's always a bit, I wouldn't say overwhelming, but definitely whelming when someone lists or goes through it all, because saying it in a few sentences makes it sound like you've accomplished so much in a short period of time. And actually, that's the tip of the iceberg, right? It's been 4 years of a lot of work and a lot of downs as well as the highs.
Absolutely. And we were just kind of joking beforehand about how I was going to trip over the some of the words in your intro there. I think actually it's quite nice having you on the call. I might book you in to do my intros in the future, because usually I'm having to do several takes on the pre-intro. And anyone that listened to last week's episode before I picked it up will have heard the outtakes that I forgot to edit out. But yes, great to have you on. So Claire, let's start at the beginning, really. I mean, let's go back to your academic kind of choices, really. And I mean, they're just incredible, really. The PhD in material science. So talk us through kind of the early days. So how you got interested in physics, engineering, kind of, and all that kind of stuff, and then how that kind of transformed to kind of a career at Rolls-Royce and where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. I started off doing physics at Imperial when I was obviously my undergraduate, a teenager, it's a debate between that and my driving license, which is the harder accomplishment of my life. I might debate it was my driving license, took 7 attempts at that one, and I got my degree first time, but it was hard. It was really tough 3 years. I had a countdown calendar, and I some people are really gifted at things like physics. I definitely wasn't. I had to work really hard at it. I got a 2-1, which I was deeply proud of.
That's amazing.
60.0. I worked just hard enough, but yeah, it was a tough degree, and Imperial's not an easy university. Then continued there, did my master's, and worked and continued and did my PhD in aerospace materials at Imperial College again. I was very lucky in my PhD choice. I actually said I'd never do a PhD. I was determined that it was not going to be my future, partially because my family told me that I was destined to do a PhD. My dad told me from the age of like 20. And because no one's parents can ever be right, I told him I'd never do a PhD. It wasn't for me. And then lo and behold, I continued on and did a PhD. But what I had in my mind of a PhD was so different to what it really is. In my mind, PhDs are stuck in a room with a load of books, or nowadays a computer, and you're modeling or you're reading and you're deep diving something on your own. That wasn't what I did. Mine was an industrial PhD. So I was with Rolls-Royce, working with people, looking at things as a collective, as a community. Also, I was very, I say lucky / deeply unlucky in my PhD choice. Depends how you perceive things, right? But my PhD was in something I'd never done before. It wasn't in anything I'd ever studied. And therefore, I came in with a completely fresh set of eyes, but it did mean I had to learn an undergraduate degree in about 3 weeks. So you go in, you learn a whole new set of materials, you apply it to something you've never even heard of before, and you ask the most fundamental questions of your PhD supervisor and your peers because you don't realize they're stupid questions. And I was really fortunate actually in this time. I'm going to call out one of my friends, Lucy, who's still one of my closest friends today. She and I used to go and sit in the jacuzzi or the sauna, and I'd ask her the questions I was too embarrassed to ask anyone else because she had a background in the topic. So did that, did my undergraduate, did my PhD with Rolls-Royce, and then COVID turned up. And at the time, I'd been working on and off consulting in deep tech. So worked in nuclear tech, water tech, and then sewage tech, deep diving the industries, deep diving different technologies within those industries. And when COVID turned up, so we say, started looking at wastewater-based epidemiology. And what that means is taking a sample of sewage from a community and analysing it for the health of that community. The way it's done is rather rudimentary. It's essentially using something not dissimilar to this at times. For those listening, that was a cup. And taking a cup of sewage and taking it to a lab and saying, in this community, there is this level of this illness, which is rather slow, not particularly pleasant, and rather expensive when you have people involved. Started working that at the beginning of COVID, and that's when my journey really started with the company.
Yeah, I remember those days. It was it's how they kind of assigned the tiers system, isn't it? You know, based on the wastewater, and but it was always felt like such a slow process. So so it's very kind of early days really in terms of your kind of your career going kind of straight from. Well, it's not really straight from academia, is it? Because like you say, you got that industry link.
Also, in between, I didn't go straight from my undergraduate straight to the PhD either. I worked for a few years in between. And after I finished my PhD, there was a year before I started the company working as a consultant. So there was a few years of working.
Yeah.
Also, I'm one of those people that can never really sit still. So my PhD had several other jobs. I used to teach maths to gifted students, children, and then also was a consultant. So on the side, I did work for 2 different companies looking at these technologies. So from the age of around 20 to the age of, what age did I start the company? Late 20s, about 8 years, was a deep tech consultant for a lot of engineering companies. PhDs, industrial PhDs pay well. They don't pay that well. So it's always good to have a bit of extra cash coming in.
So going back to, obviously, the rebel in you not wanting to follow your parents' advice, what changed your mind on the PhD then?
I can't believe I'm telling this story. This is really embarrassing. So I had a few glasses of wine one night and I was in a public space. There were other people around there. And as I was enjoying a few glasses of wine, I talked to a stranger. And this stranger and I discussed, and I can't really remember much of this conversation, embarrassingly, discussed engineering PhDs. And he managed to convince me that my future was doing an engineering PhD. And the next day, I woke up with a business card from him and I called him the following day. And he reminded me of the conversation and convinced me all over again on the phone the following day that it was my future. And that random stranger at a bar completely changed what my future was going to be, which is quite terrifying, actually, when you think about the concept that you have your life planned out and then one night can change everything.
Or maybe it was just kind of, confirming kind of what you knew deep down, and maybe it wasn't just mom and dad saying it, you know.
Maybe.
I love that story though. That's incredible. So he's that stranger is partially responsible for the formation of Untap then, or at least putting you in the position to.
That's not giving too much credit, but yeah, potentially.
There's the butterfly effect. So
Yeah, indeed.
oh, that's awesome. So Untap then, those early days with obviously COVID and everything. What was that like? Talk us through like the early kind of formation of the business.
So, just to give a bit of an intro, wastewater-based epidemiology, as I mentioned, is the measure of health from sewage. Sewage is really cool because you can measure the health of a community before they're sick. You excrete illnesses from day zero of infection. So, this is nothing to do with catching, you can't catch illnesses from sewage, you can't catch COVID from sewage. What I'm saying is you can measure the health of people that contribute to the sample through the sewage. We're not clearing up the water or anything. It's very much an indicator of the collective population. So that was being done during COVID. It's been done actually since the 1930s.
Not really.
So the 1930s, the first use case ever was with polio. So they detected polio in communities using sewage. They collect a sample and inject it into a monkey. If the monkey got polio, if not a bacterial disease, then you knew there was a lot of polio in that city. Obviously not the world's nicest or kindest system. So we then updated that system, well, the world did, the scientists at the time, to making manual testing. So you could test it in a lab. And that's what was done for the best part of 80 years, on and off. It wasn't that widespread. But then for COVID, it really did take off. And today, actually, it's still used for dengue fever, hepatitis, flu, some places, norovirus, and COVID around the world. It is still a very used tool, but it's still very manual. People are still collecting it manually, taking it to labs, analysing it. We're getting a lot more efficient at doing it. Our logistics are getting a lot better. There's a lot of companies in the world that specialise in logistics now, but it is still hyper manual. And that's where we enter the scene. What our mission was at the very beginning when we started in 2021, was what if we can put this at every sewage treatment works in the UK? What if we can automate sewage surveillance? So you could say in every borough and every city across the United Kingdom, whether there was going to be a COVID outbreak, whether there was going to be a flu outbreak, norovirus outbreak. That was our initial mission. We've since changed that. So what we aim to do is have a small little box that could sit on the sewage treatment works and analyse the sewage and tell you about the illnesses. We've actually updated that mission and we've decided that we can dream a lot bigger, we can do a lot better, and we could actually put this box directly into a hospital, directly into a care home, directly even into an office, and tell you about the health of people in that building. So imagine if you have a hospital and you can detect norovirus before people are sick, and you can do widespread infection prevention and control methods to stop people contracting norovirus in that community, which fundamentally kills vulnerable people, which hospitals are full of. So if you can stop the spread of norovirus, you can save lives. That's just such a cool, and it's the point, right? The point of starting a company is to have an impact, and that's fundamentally what will have a huge impact. And actually, on that note, so we've made the hardware now, so it's taken 3-4 years to make it, and I'm probably cutting this way too early, but I'm very excited.
No,
in our
cool.
office, we're now testing it right now. Our hardware's working, and we've made that mission and vision a reality. So we are testing our own company sewage, and we are able to tell when there are outbreaks before they happen.
It's so exciting. It's absolutely amazing. I saw your post on LinkedIn earlier this week, kind of sharing it. And I know when we started working together, was it back end of the summer? Was it like August time last year?
August, yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, the business had been through some kind of an interesting kind of challenge over the year, obviously with the co-founder leaving and the obviously, unfortunately, your sister passing away. It was there was lots of challenges, and we worked together to bring in a chief product officer, and literally we turned out, it was an absolute pleasure working with you on that, and despite all the challenges. But I remember Neil kind of checking in with Neil in his second week and say, how's week one going? And he says, yeah, it's really interesting. So they've never turned the machine on before, and we did it for the first time today, and it worked. I was like, that's brilliant. So, yeah, it is reassuring. Obviously, it would have been fine if it didn't. I'm glad it's. And yeah, fast forward to today, you've got new offices, which, it's great to see all kitted out at Christmas. And just, it's so exciting, especially in just that short space of time, like 3 or 4 months of how things have kind of come on. And yeah, really exciting.
There's that old adage, if you're all rowing together, you go a lot faster. And we've really hit that in the past probably 2 months. we're really rowing
Yeah,
together. Yeah, it's just to hit on
absolutely.
that. Like we had a bit of very 24. It seemed that the world had a terrible 24, and I was no exception. Unfortunately, my co-founder decided to leave. It was most likely the right decision for him and the company. We're both
Mm,
good friends still, but it's never pleasant to happen, right, to either party. So he left, and I had a very personally hard year last year with my sister passing
mm,
away. So the company, to be honest with you, we coasted, but we could have crumbled. We didn't.
mm.
And sometimes you have to be proud, not of how far you've come, but of just staying stationary. And I'm proud of the fact that we did survive that. When the end of the summer, when you helped us, you recruiting Neil, we needed a certain type of person, and we're very lucky that Kodu provided exactly the type of person we needed. And Niels came in at the right time, at the right place to get us really rowing together. We
Yeah,
now have a product, we have a team that's not ready just for this phase where we're at now, but ready for next week and next month. We only have one hire left, we think, for the next 6 months. Don't hold me to that, but we believe we only need one more person the next 6 months to keep rowing, which I'm really pleased with because we have an awesome team that are getting on very well.
it's incredible to hear you talk like that, and just in terms of the positivity out of, like I say, 24 was challenging, but especially just to have one hire left to be able to kind of get through the next stage. I mean, that's that. I mean, yeah, that's kind of one challenge left to tick off the box, and then you can work on the getting the team again. Yeah, rowing faster and further. So no,
Getting the match fit is the phrase I
that's
like Neil
wonderful.
using. It's like getting
Yeah,
everyone match fit.
yeah. So how obviously Neil's come in. I don't want to make this whole podcast about kind of obviously the work I've done with you, but he is a key hire for the business. So but what kind of impact is having someone like Neil with the experiences that he's had for a relatively young business like yours?
Sure, let's just run through where we're at. So 21, we started the company, and we had an idea, which was the sewage surveillance for government. We pivoted that at the end of 21, beginning of 22 to looking at individualized buildings. We had a proof of concept end of 22, and we raised £1.6 million pre-seed to make that proof of concept a reality. That's all the money we've raised to date, which to have a 14, 15 person team, 1,000 square foot office in London
Hmm.
Bridge, hardware being delivered is life science tools, hardware being delivered
Yeah,
is pretty respectable, I think.
it's
And if we
brilliant.
survive for 4 years. So that's what but it did take us 3 years to make this
Hmm.
hardware. So Neil joined us in October 24. That's when the hardware, like we had prototypes and proof of concepts and modular examples, and we wired them together, but we didn't have a fundamentally a box that we could plug in a customer site and say, like, we can charge you for this. And so what we've enabled to achieve, and I want to take no, by the way, Navid, who's our head of engineering,
Mm-hmm.
has been with us for 3 years, and none of us would accomplish without him. So he very much has been the boxer, if anyone has read Animal Farm, of our company. He's really, not the ending, the middle bit, but he's been the workhorse. He's really accomplished so much with us. And since Neil joined, it's enabled the engineering team to communicate more effectively
Hmm.
and deliver what customers need. I know I'm not the world's best engineering manager because I've tried to do it the past 3 years and I haven't been great at it. And Neil is great at that. And that's, if you have everyone the same in a company, you're not going to succeed. You need very different people. He's come in as a different person to enable us to complement each other and grow.
I think that's the key thing, isn't it? It's having it's being able to step back and reflect on what you're really good at and the skills that you already have in the team, where the gaps are, where the opportunities are, and trying to find like for like. Like you say, it's not going to get you business anywhere, but I think it takes a certain mental resilience and attitude to be able to be quite honest and candid with yourself. That your words, you're not a great engineering manager, so let's get someone that is. And no, that's great. And as you were talking, I just remembered the ending of Animal Farm and Boxer's character. It's been 25 years since I've read that book. So
it came to me as I was saying it, and I regretted saying it immediately.
Yeah.
That is not what I meant at all, other than he's really been he's been a steady pair of hands that has consistently consistently put out prototype after prototype. And if anyone here has been to our office, I know, Chris, you have, you'll see our modular designs over the years. One day in our office, what we're going to have is the evolution of our system. And we're going to have it nicely up on the wall. We've got some of them here now, which show what it was like in 2022, what it was like in 2023, and all the iterations along the way, and be proud of the fact
That's awesome.
that it looks a bit rubbish sometimes, but it works. And we're the first company in the world to have ever made this work. But yeah, Navid has been here the whole time and built it, and Neil brought people together and enabled those people to really flourish. We now instead have a team of 15 people, and they're predominantly engineers because this is a multidisciplinary engineering process. We have everything biological up to full-scale hardware and people in between with electronics. So we have a full skill set here to make this product work.
Yeah, and just reflected on some of my conversations with Neil at Christmas as well, actually, saying that obviously him coming into the business had the potential to be very disruptive to a team that have been through thick and thin, over 3 or 4 years, and this new person coming in at C-suite level, it had the potential to go catastrophically wrong. But he said, to the credit of the team there, they took to kind of adjusted kind of. No one's, it's not falling apart at all. They're all on board with the changes that he might have suggested, and and I don't think he's come in and wanted to revolutionize or anything like that. But it's a credit to the culture and the team spirit, and again, everyone rowing together. So that's fantastic.
Really. Yeah. Again, I need to credit the team here again. I wasn't around much in 2024 due to having to be at home with family, and people have to pay their mortgages, people have to look after their kids. And despite me not being around much, people still stayed with the company and believed in us and carried on going. That's a testament to them, not to me. So I'm very proud of the fact that we've got such an amazing group around us. Neil is an addition to that. We're rowing together now, and I really hope the next person that joins us, and our one remaining hire this year, is head of BD, a little plug out there, it's on LinkedIn, adds to that culture. As someone very intelligently said, when we were only 8 or 9 people, every person that joins is a tenth of the culture. And that is so important in a small company in a way I had never thought of in quite those terms before. So we're really hiring for personality as well as for experience.
It's I bang on about it all the time to my clients and people that I speak to. It's if they've got the skills but the personality doesn't line up, or the mission, the values, there's potentially going to be a problem there. And you can train skills, you can send them on courses, you can sit them with the expert, but it takes a long time to change someone's personality and change their viewpoint. And I mean, how long did it take you to
I'm not sure you ever can change.
Well,
you can only just guide people a bit off course, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important. So shall we talk
also,
about...
you spend more time at work than you do at home with your partner, right? Fundamentally,
you
spend more time, the most time you have, and the most brain power is spent in that environment. Why would you want to spend it with people you don't like? And if I have sign-off rights on who can join the company, especially at this stage, why would I want to spend time with people I don't like? It seems foolish. So that really is not my MO.
Yeah, that's it. At the end of the day, employment is a choice. It certainly probably doesn't feel that way to a lot of people who are unfortunately out of work, or if you're miserable, but it's employment by choice. And you get to choose your colleagues. You don't get to choose your family. So choose wisely. But so obviously we've been through. It's been a challenging kind of year or so, and I mean, starting a tech startup itself isn't without its challenges. So would you say last year was probably the hardest you've had it in terms of the most challenging period of the business?
Well, if I personally, last year was, I hope, the hardest year I ever had in my entire life. But for the business, probably not, actually. So we raised our pre-seed of 1.6 million, which sounds great on paper. Was not easy because it was the end of COVID, but you know what I mean. A lot of money had been poured into diagnostics at that point, and so raising a pre-seed for another diagnostics company was not easy. But we're not just another diagnostics company, right? We're not a diagnostics company at all. How we visage the world is there's public health and there's diagnostics. We're either micro public health or macro diagnostics with a gap in between. But that's what it was like. Kept being told we're another COVID company. No one likes being rejected 1,000 times. So we received the funding. It took a bit longer than we would have liked. So cash flow was a non-trivial concern for a couple of months. But that's the nature of every small company. Every startup has some stories they'll only tell in the pub around those times.
Or on a podcast.
Well, I'm not divulging the secrets of those times. Those times are really hard because you question yourself, you question your vision, you question everything. And we're about to start, we're raising again now. So yeah, looking forward to having those concerns in a couple of months. But you wouldn't be human without having those questions and those concerns. It's very, very normal. And also having those fundraising periods makes you question. You're sat in an echo chamber of 15 people, you're building your company. You don't really get the same type of interrogation as to why you've chosen certain things, your business model, your projections, all that kind of thing. So it's quite good to be interrogated. And that's a really positive part of that process. So no, that was not the worst, I would say. Fundraising back then was hard because of cash flow constraints. But now we have, in 2025, something that we can sell to customers, and we're scaling this year and next year. We're looking back rose-tinted spectacles on the company's history. Hopefully it's onwards and upwards.
Yeah, you're in a different proposition or position, aren't you? So very challenging. There's a bit more money going around, I think, in 21, 22. But like I say, you had those challenges of with another diagnostic company, even though you weren't, but there's that view. But now money's a bit tighter in general, but you've got the advantage of having a thing that works, and you're going to have a head of business development, so hopefully start building up a pipeline. So it's a bit more of a sure thing if there ever is one. You know, from an investment point of view, you can say, well, this is the track we're on. This is our go to market now, as opposed to this is our go to concept side of things. So
yeah. So this year we're going to human health. So we've got a lot of customers in the pipeline. We've got in excess of 1,500 customer sites. I say that because the customer sites depends if they acquire small hospitals or not. So it does change on the number. We have an excess of 1,500 customer sites, and they're all human in our pipeline. But we're now also starting the process of also testing for avian flu, so chickens and cows. So doing a bit of pivot, not pivot so much as expansion into further markets due to the concerns around avian flu this year. So this year we're going out to animals and to humans and scaling throughout the course of the next 18 months to start making some cash. Very exciting.
That is very exciting. What would you say has been from the investment journey, the kind of fundraising? Because whilst I've known you, it's every other week you've been flying off somewhere to meet investors.
Not always, but sometimes it's been for holiday.
Yeah, you got to mix the two. But what would you say have been the key learnings for you, kind of, and especially kind of going from the two kind of fundraising rounds there? Yeah, that you'd be happy to share with other people kind of about to embark on a fundraising journey. I'm interrupting this episode to share some exciting things happening around why design. At the core of this podcast are the incredible design journeys my guests have been on and where they're heading. And these journeys stem from the relationships they build, the communities they're part of, and the amazing achievements that come from collaboration. So beyond the podcast, we're hosting regular online huddles and quarterly meetups in the UK, with plans underway for an annual gathering in the US. We're also running hands-on workshops both in person at Makerspaces and online to connect and inspire people in physical product development. So if you'd like to join us or stay in the loop about upcoming events, sign up at teamkodu.com/events or click the link in the show notes. Now, back to the episode.
There are definitely good ways of doing it and bad ways of doing it, but I'm not the oracle in the good ways of doing it. I definitely can give you some bad ways. We have not got it perfect. It takes a long time, and you kiss a lot of frogs. It just takes a while, right? And people that you thought were dead certs aren't always. It's It's a bit of a slog.
Mm.
It's, however, been great for us in rethinking our company vision, mission, pricing, go to market. Like, we've been asked the right questions, and they're the people I want giving me money. Having people that ask you the right questions is so important. So I value that a lot. And raising is taking a while, like a few months, maybe not that long, but it's felt like a while. We didn't choose the best time of year to start. We started raising in December last year, and everyone's burnt out and just looking forward to spending time with family and going on holiday potentially. So we started in earnest at the beginning of this year. Last year was very much a test the waters with the market. Are we raising the right amount of money? Is our narrative correct? All that sort of thing. It just all takes a lot longer than you think it's going to take.
Yeah, it's a trial and error, and every time you get knocked back, as long as you get feedback or you get questions asked, it's helping with the following ones, I suppose. You mentioned, and you've introduced me to advisors as well. To what extent do kind of Imperial and the advisors there have in terms of that pitching process, or are they kind of more on the tech side of it?
Yeah, I probably should have shouted out Imperial more in this. I'm phenomenally lucky to have been supported by Imperial College throughout not just my undergraduate education, my PhD education, but throughout the whole startup. I went to do a woman in entrepreneurship course essentially at Imperial after I left, so 21 potentially. And in that process, they taught you to pitch and they gave you some training. And then you went to a competition, and it was a very friendly competition. And they gave me my first ever Britney mic. And there was like 120, 130 people in the audience. It was my first ever experience of being on a stage with a presentation and presenting with that many people. Some of them wasn't academic actually, but it was quite a lot of people in a proper theatre, and judges asked you questions about the company. It was a very friendly way of doing it. And we did lots of practices. It didn't feel scary, and I'm not sure why, because I feel like it should have. But they did it really well, phenomenally well, and I enjoyed that process. They then asked me if I would represent Imperial in a European pitching competition, and so I did. We had very little information about it before. It was called Stage 2, and it was maybe 50 startups across Europe went to pitch at it, and it was a 2-minute pitch each. And I was a bit more scared of this one. So there's about 1,000 people in the audience, and I felt deeply underprepared. But went on stage anyway and presented. I sort of remember thinking, like, what could really go wrong? I can't die on stage, so what can really go wrong? As I walked on, and it went well. We won the competition. We won 6 out of 13 prizes.
Amazing.
Best European innovation, about 50 grand, if not more, of cash. It's not bad for 2 minutes of work. And it felt great. That was honestly a real highlight of the company at that point. It was like a bit of validation that sometimes you need. So Imperial let us to that one, and then they, I guess, took the company under their wing a little after that, because it was good for them and good for me, and done a lot of things alongside Imperial since then. I'm a big advocate for them. The Enterprise Lab has supported me in doing pitching competitions. They've financed me to travel. I've presented a lot of events, brought banners along, been mentored by Imperial. So we've got mentors, advisors. They've got the IVMS scheme, which is the Imperial Venture Mentoring Scheme. I hope that's right, which has supported us fundamentally, has been a huge support throughout the company's journey. And then also they've got the advisors and residents. That's not what they're called. They're called the EIRs, experts and residents. And they've been amazing, right? I call them, some of them, once every 6 months and have check-ins. We probably wouldn't still be here without the support of Imperial College. They have not paid me to say this, and they have no equity in the company, but have been a phenomenal support and base throughout the whole journey. We're really lucky.
It's that's incredible, and yeah, it just shows just having someone in your corner that's impartial, and obviously there's something in it for them, but really it's, like you say, there's no equity on the table here. They're doing it kind of because you're affiliated and because they want to be helpful, and
because they're good people. And
Yeah,
genuinely, each person involved in that they're part of the organization, yes, but they're all individuals that are making the active choice to be in your corner.
it's awesome. I know from my experience, having it could be a lonely existence being a founder, especially when it's just me and the cats at Kodu, so. having communities that I'm part of where there's other founders, and having the business that does my back office, we have regular check-ins, and it's just not necessarily holding you accountable, but just kind of asking those questions. Are you sure that's a good idea? Or, have you thought about this? And just having that sounding board, I've found particularly useful. And it sounds like that's the kind of role that Imperial are there for as well. So that's awesome. So in terms of your, you've won awards for kind of women in industry, women in innovation, High Growth Woman Founder of the Year 2023. Yeah. So obviously you just
We've
talked
won quite a
about
few
that one.
awards now. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But that was
probably
a different one. So we won the UK BAA High Growth Women Founder of the Year. We won stage 2, about 4
yeah.
women things of the year. UKRI Women in Innovation, Top 20 Global Startup, GBX Upstart Awards, and we've won some more. We've won quite a few now. Yeah, it's a real luxury.
That's awesome. No, but it's incredible to be recognised like that, and especially I think we need to celebrate women in engineering, full stop, let alone women founders. So, bit of an obvious question, but has that kind of experience as a female founder shaped your approach to leadership and how you've gone about things with?
Like, I've never been a bloke. I don't really know how men experience the world. So I find that a really hard question to answer if I'm
Yeah.
truly honest. I think that some things are harder for women and some things are easier for women. But honestly, being asked when I'm planning on having kids by investors kind of annoys me, which is a valid question. Sometimes I can see the logic, but oof, does it annoy you? There are pros and cons. There
Yeah.
are pros and cons. But again, I've never been a bloke. Starting a company is not easy. I'm sure it's not easy for a man either. As a woman, there are some things that make it harder, sure. And I think also naturally, maybe other women don't feel this way. I just assume they do. You want your team to like you. You care about them. You deeply care about the fact that they're happy, that they can fulfill their potential at work, but also that everyone's in an environment in which they can succeed, but also they are happy as well. That's important. And maybe guys don't worry about that. It's not an additional variable on their matrix as much.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's me being biased towards the alpha male stereotype, but
I mean,
that's
yeah, I
something.
think they certainly do. I know I was always conflicted with kind of the logic of decisions versus the empathy and the emotion of decisions when it came to kind of teams that I've managed in the past. And I think there are blokes out there that care, and I'm sure there's women out there that are ruthless. But I think it's maybe it's the stereotypes, maybe it's the perception as well. It's okay, I'll do air quotes here, it's okay for a bloke to be kind of more business minded and kind of driven because that's what middle-aged white blokes do.
I've got to say, I'm not called confident, I'm called aggressive often. And
Yeah.
that maybe I'm a bit aggressive, I don't know. But that does pee me off. But potentially blokes women be seen as more confident, whereas because I'm a woman being like, I'm aggressive, or maybe I'm just aggressive, who knows? My friends will probably
Yeah.
comment on this, say, no, you're just aggressive. I'll find out later.
But I think it's potentially, and I'm by no means any expert here, but I think maybe it's kind of those traits that have made you successful, that confidence or whatever label you want to put on it. But because that strays from the perceived norm of what kind of people expect of a male and female roles in business, and the same with kind of men. If they're empathetic, they're not the macho alpha male, so they stray from that. Maybe that's the thing that other people have an issue with, and and that is genuinely their problem. But you kind of being assertive, that's probably a better word for it, isn't it, rather than aggressive? But that's probably got you to where you are. And I think going on, obviously, what you said earlier about kind of being asked kind of when or if you're going to have children by investors, I think that's got nothing to do with business, because if you're building a business, you're going to have people around you. So, and how many women work through it anyway, founders? I know plenty of women founders who are back at work a few weeks later. But, what other kind of challenges can you kind of think of that's specific to kind of, I don't know, gender, but any challenges you face that male founders might not, that you've come across?
Sexism is the only one that would potentially be one. I've really not come across that much. I'm lucky, wrong word. Fortunate potentially. My background is my dad is an entrepreneur and in business. I've grown up in an engineering environment where there's a lot of men, and I've always been okay with that. It's never been something that's truly bothered me. But I can imagine for some people that haven't experienced that, it's tricky, right? I've been more often than not, my meetings are 8 men in a room and me, and I don't even notice. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you're ignored, and you feel like there was one meeting where one of my senior team said they treated you like a daughter throughout that. That's annoying. Well, that's really annoying when someone treats you like a daughter or like a kid. When you're in your 30s, you don't want to be treated like a kid, but no one, when they're running a company, wants to be treated like a kid, even if they're 19. So, yeah, that was frustrating, but I've been kind of okay with it. We've created an environment here at the team where we're 14, 15 people, depending how you want to count our fractional CFO or not. We have 5 women, which is unheard of for a hardware company. So we're quite heavily women. So it really doesn't feel like that's different for us. We've got an environment where it's normalized, and any problem that women would have is felt by a third of our organization. So it's not about any disparity or anything. It's very much part of the norm.
What you're saying there about being the only woman in the room and not necessarily having it as loud a voice. And I'm getting deja vu now because I think I mentioned it on the last podcast I recorded. But I'm reading Creativity Inc. At the moment by the one of the Pixar founders, and that's quite an interesting journey, like an autobiography to read, because a few chapters he dedicates to the women that he worked and the women directors and how they recognised, they were alerted to, I suppose, they become aware that there was an imbalance in terms of the movies and the films, kind of the crew that made them up, and they had a minority of women leaders, so they put together a working lunch group of women who kind of various different levels, but they would always bring in a guest speaker, and that could be a woman or a male, and they'd always be talking about how to get ahead and get what you want in life. And I thought that was quite interesting, and because one of them, they were talking about the voice and presence in meetings, and literally he talks about getting the women around the lunch table to stand up and tell the group what they want, but then tell it loud. I mean, I'm probably not doing it justice the way I'm talking about it, but
There's scary things like, Bad Blood, or anyone that's seen the film about Elizabeth. Her name always leaves my mind, but Theranos, she used to speak in a deep voice. It's so sad that people feel the need to do that. I'm about to try and my brain is tricking me into doing that. I'm not going to go lower. They feel the need to do that to be taken seriously. That's madness.
Yeah.
And if I ever start doing that, please feel free to travel to London Bridge and slap me, because that's not right. That's just not right at all. And I tried to be I remember back in 23, I had someone advise me that I should be more professional at work and that I should have my work self and my home self. So I tried this for maybe 2 months, and I felt that I was being someone at work that was inauthentic, and I kept cracking. And doing things I was deeply embarrassed about, because it was like you were being blue the whole time, and then suddenly a flash of red came out, and it was such a change that it felt really weird and unnatural. So I'm not going to try and be anyone but myself, but a slightly more professional version that swears a bit less. And that's my aim. We're all going to be ourselves, but a bit more professional. And if that means my voice is not going to be really low and authoritative, so be it.
I think I'm probably just a little bit more Midlands around my friends, but other than that, I'm the same person when I'm speaking to clients and candidates. But one of my old bosses, he used to say to his son, who was probably about 4 or 5 at the time, said he had a work voice and a home voice, and his work voice was very squeaky, and he believed. No, that's quite funny. So, thank you. We've ticked off quite a lot of key topics there, really, and got into the weeds with some stuff there. But let's let's look at kind of moving forward, kind of things that you're looking forward to. I know we mentioned before the call. Obviously, you're doing something as a group, actually, something really, really important. You've raised quite a lot of money so far, haven't you? So, and for anyone watching, it will explain Claire's running gear that she's wearing. But perhaps you could tell us about the marathon that you're training for.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am currently training for a marathon April 6th in Brighton with my family, running with my cousin, my brother, and another cousin. Sadly, one of my cousins trained so hard, she broke her femur. So she has had to pull out. It's actually absurd how hard she must have pushed herself to have done that. And that tells you the amount of effort that I'm now having to put in
Yeah,
and a panic to compete with these people. So sadly, my sister passed away last year. So we're running in memory and also to raise money for diagnostics. And we have raised to date £80,000, that
that's
charity.
incredible.
It's a lot of money. And now, so the marathon is from their recording 6 weeks away. And of course, I'm doing a lot of last minute training. I booked a physio, a chiropractor, a nutritionist. I'm getting my gait analysed and I'm panicking, is what you can hear there. I'm really doing all the 1% things, which if I just started training 1 month earlier, would have made so much more difference. But
Yeah,
hey, we're here now. So my team have very kindly, we run once a week together. And this week was our biggest running club to date. 5 of us went together and we
that's
ran
amazing.
7K. It was lovely. And we will keep doing so until the marathon. So we're doing it together. It's a nice thing to do, talking. It's also just good to run and talk about things. We're not talking about work, we're
Yeah.
about other stuff, which is not an opportunity you get that often, embarrassingly. Yeah, very proud, but also means that I'm in running kit in the office probably too often.
I think there's plenty of people wear running kit and they don't actually do any running. So I think you're absolutely fine. And the amount you've raised is incredible.
Yeah, we're really proud of it. We set a target of £50,000. We smashed it up to 75, and we already smashed it again. We've got 6 weeks to go.
Yeah.
There's some causes that are really important, and this one's really important to me. I've been mentioning it every wedding, every social occasion I've been to. If people would like to donate, I'm sure the
We're
link will be
gonna
in the chat.
yeah, we're gonna put the link in the show notes. I'm going to post about it and wax lyrical on LinkedIn
Thank you.
because I think it's such an amazing cause. Yeah, it's incredible. Have you done a marathon before, or is this your
Did
first
one
one?
when I was 22 and a bit
Yeah.
lighter and a bit younger, a bit more sprightly in 4 hours. I'm aiming to just run in 3:30. I can't believe I'm saying that publicly. I'm terrified. So yeah, fingers and toes crossed, and hopefully I have my toes at the end of it.
Well, if you break the 3:30 mark, I think you're then in line for doing the Boston Marathon, aren't you? I think
Oh,
they've got
don't say
pretty
that.
harsh.
I'll get addicted and then we'll suddenly end up being a marathon runner as a hobby. That'd be too
Well,
time consuming. I want to run a startup too.
you could tie that in with an investment trip because there's lots of life sciences businesses out there, isn't there?
I like your attitude. Thank you. It's actually funny. So obviously our technology is sewage analysis. And so I was thinking, oh, what festivals do I want to go to? Maybe we could put the tech at the festival.
Yeah.
It's just trying to tie things together in life works very well.
Well, yeah, you could get a trip down to Villa Park and see a Black Sabbath when they roll Ozzy out. Let's analyze all that.
Exactly. Do some good analysis. No, so that's one thing I'm looking forward to, type 2 fun this
Hmm.
year. And but also I'm looking forward to closing some money in the company and going back to customers. We are going out to customers this year and we're going out to hospitals and farms for avian flu. Avian flu, over 1 million birds have been killed already this year. The price of eggs has impacted the US.
Mm.
It was $22 for a pack of 6 eggs in one store in the US
What?
recently. Yeah, because so many birds are being killed in the US for avian flu. We have a problem here. It's not as expensive here
Mm.
yet. Hopefully it isn't. So we're looking at these sorts of problems and
Yeah.
doing testing for those. But we're also speaking to cruise ships. We're also speaking to the military. We're also speaking to all these different sectors.
Mm.
We have a really exciting few years ahead. I'm really excited to get into customers' pockets, which is a better phrase than customers' sewers. But it's going to be we've been very introspective as a company,
Yeah.
building the tech, talking to customers, understanding their problems. But fundamentally, we spent 3 years building. We're a deep tech company. We've got patents now. We've built the hardware. We need to scale it and get out to customers. There's going to be
Mm.
stuff we've forgotten. And that's this year. This year, we're putting 10 to 20 devices out. We're learning learning things we didn't realize. And then in 26 will be a big ramp up for us, really getting
Mm.
out there and getting market domination because our moat is going to be both in the hardware with the patents, but also in the data. Imagine if we have enough hardware across the UK, you can create a virus map of the whole country where you can watch in real time novel
Mm.
illnesses spread across the country. That's really the aim. And once we have the market domination, that data moat will be huge because we'll have the historical data as well. It's going to be a really exciting few years. I personally have enjoyed the past 3 as an overall picture, and I'm sure that the next 3 will not be
Mm.
in any way dissimilar in having their lows, but having a lot more highs.
I'm excited just hearing you talk about it, and that's incredible. It's been one hell of a ride on our short kind of journey so far with you, but certainly
We've
looking
achieved a
forward to
lot
following
since
it.
October.
Yeah, really have. And I know, this year is about, like you say, getting into customers' pockets. So briefly, we may be a little bit late to the press with this one, but the business development role that you're looking to fill, anyone that's listening, or anyone that knows anyone that's listening, that's got business
Experience
development
in infection
experience.
prevention control, experience in sales preferably. It doesn't need to be humans, it can actually either be animals or humans because we're all the same, sort of. So experience in infection prevention control and sales is our aim, but you can't be afraid of lifting up a manhole because this role, like, we all have to lift up. I would spend my weekend playing with animal poo, like genuinely
Who doesn't?
myself. Well, exactly, yeah. Not weird at all. Because that's part of the job. We are testing our own sewage in our office. Last week we found an illness in our team, and that person is not at work this week because we don't want to catch it. Our job involves that. I'm not shying away from the fact that that's real, because if you can't do that, you shouldn't be here.
Well, I think the benefits that come with the technology far outweigh the less glamorous bits, let's say.
Yeah, well, again, like, one of our first use cases was in an office, my dad's office. And this is why we really grew, like, this is one of the anchors that keeps the company going in my head, is we were testing my dad's office of 150 people. My dad wasn't very well at the time, yet he was still going to work. And we were able to tell him and others that weren't very well what days they could or couldn't go to work. And people in that office that were immunocompromised didn't catch COVID. Now, there are people everywhere across the UK that are going to work at risk every single day that are immunocompromised. More of us will be immunocompromised as time goes on, as medication gets better. How awesome would it be to be at work and say, we've got increased risk of increased risk of respiratory viruses, and in yourself that you can wear a mask, you can hand sanitize more, you can be aware of your risk in that environment and reduce your risk. That's the world I want to live in. So when times get tough, it's important to remember that people will have better lives because of our tech.
That's incredible. So we'll share a link to your job posting on there, and if it's still open by the time it goes live. Hope never know. I'm not a sales recruiter, but there'll be some salespeople out there, I'm sure, that don't mind rolling their sleeves up and and getting stuck in. But Claire, this has been awesome. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I'll share the link to the Just Giving site as well. And if anyone wants to reach out to you to talk about the work you're doing, and perhaps I know you like doing talking spots as well, and that's been quite helpful in terms of raising some cash for the cause.
Raising cash and also customers. How we found most of our customers to date is talking to people. Who knew?
So if there's anyone listening that would be interested in talking to you about kind of some speaking spots, then please do reach out. I'll put the link in the show notes. But Claire, thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure, Chris.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Why Design. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you're listening. It really helps others discover the podcast. And while you're at it, why not share it with a friend or colleague who'd enjoy it too? If you'd like to stay connected or explore more about the work we're doing at Kodu, feel free to visit teamkodu.com or connect with me, Chris White, on LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.